Hello everyone, and let's talk about how you as an association leader can track generative AI skill development in your association stakeholders, in your volunteers, in your staff members, and why that's important. Now, if you're watching this video, you know that you need to adopt generative AI to stay relevant, and in order to adopt generative AI, it's very important to train your staff and your volunteers, and perhaps even your members, to ensure success with generative AI tools. In order to train them effectively, you need to know how to track the progress of their skill development. And that's really important because using generative AI requires a mix of technical and creative skills. And you are facing a mix of diverse member needs and structures with chapters, sections for your volunteer staff, for your volunteers and your staff members, in your main central office, your operations. So untracked training, in other words, if you don't track your training, that risks disjointed, ineffective programs, one-size-fits-all approaches that often don't result in the outcomes you desire. Whereas tracking reveals how skills are applied in real-world scenarios and whether they're effective. For example, are generative AI tools actually helping your volunteers improve local chapter engagement? Are your staff members using generative AI effectively to improve your conference planning, to improve your content marketing? What kind of things should you be tracking? Let's move on to that. One is engagement metrics. That shows the success or failure of your generative AI learning. In other words, how well are your staff and your volunteers actually engaging with the content that you're providing? Tools here that you can use to track that might be time and learning platforms or use of generative AI, whatever techniques and tools you're using. How much is it being used? How extensively is it being used? So tool use frequency is one, another is time and learning platform, and ideally you have some kind of certifications and quizzes so you can track those as well. And having proactive adjustments if you see that people aren't getting the skills development that they need is going to be really important here. So that's one, engagement metrics. Of course, even more important are outcome-based metrics for generative AI adoption. Are people actually using generative AI to improve efficiency, meaning doing the same things with less resources? Are they being more effective, meaning using the same resources to do more things, having a better outcome? Ideally, they'd be more efficient and effective, so doing more with less, the magic of it. Are they being more creative and innovative? Are errors being reduced? Metrics can improve member services, faster event workflows, all of these sorts of things. These tangible outcomes prove that your generative AI adoption is successful, and that outcome-based learning aligns your training with long-term goals. I'll tell you about a client case study, a legal services association I worked with, where they had a challenge where staff lacked confidence in using generative AI tools, and they tried to do an initial training and it didn't really work out, so they hired me to help. What I did was work with them on baseline assessment where the staff currently were, and then tailored training modules to the needs of the staff and tracked staff use of it. So we used real-time progress, tracking them using actually AI-powered platforms. The results of the rollout over the first 6 months were that there was an increase in staff confidence in using tools from 30% to 80%. So that's a great increase. Member retention increased by 15% over 6 months, and administrative workloads reduced by 25%. Great outcome. Okay, you want to be thinking about, as you are developing your training, that you want to tailor to your diverse demographics. You're thinking about different staff members and their needs, different volunteers and their needs, whatever their priorities are. So you want to associate your training with member demographics, and that includes tracking. So don't use the same outcomes necessarily for different people, with different roles and different needs. Make sure to track different demographics in different ways. Sometimes, of course, the same outcomes will be valuable, sometimes different ones. So you want to think about customizing not only the training, but also the tracking. Another thing that you want to think about is using AI tools in order to track training in the skills that people developed using generative AI tools, because generative AI tools themselves can be used. So having a platform, an LMS, a number of them can use generative AI or analytics AI. So AI can be generative AI, can be analytics to track progress. So don't simply use regular quizzes and assessments. That's useful. But the client case study I worked with, we also had AI tools that tracked people's progress and then gave them customized training. So customize their training based on their progress. So you can do things with associations I've worked where we identified underperforming chapters and volunteers that needed extra support, whereas we identified high performers who we then asked to help as mentors and champions of generative AI adoption. And that helped us optimize generative AI skill development. So, best practices. Let's go on to the best practices. Align your training goals with strategic priorities and the tracking with the goals that you set. Build scenarios that mirror real-life challenges for practical learning, including tracking the outcomes of these scenarios. Combine quantitative tracking with participant feedback, so getting qualitative feedback. Update your training content to match evolving generative AI trends. The tools are always going to be improving. Right now, the generative AI is the worst it will ever be, and so you can always keep improving your generative AI learning and tracking as well. Use the results to refine and personalize future training programs as you set the standards for your industry, and so that you will be seen as a thought leader, and that will help improve the attractiveness of your members to you. If you have any questions, please send me an email at gleb@disasteravoidanceexperts.com. Again, that's Gleb, Gleb, at disasteravoidanceexperts.com. And please subscribe to this channel so that you get more video content like this.